Good morning, everyone. Apologies for being a couple of minutes late. It's been one of those technical gremlin mornings, and my iPad's just decided it's going to reboot itself. Oh, wonderful. Good morning, happy Sunday, happy Mother's Day if you're here in the UK or Ireland. I hope if you're a mum, you are tucked up, still in bed, you've got a cup of tea, a card, some chocolates, some flowers, and you've just been totally and utterly spoiled and pampered this morning. I'm sending all love to all the mums I know, my mum who's amazing, my mother-in-law, my sister-in-law, all fabulous mums, and also everybody else out there, my lovely friends. Speaking of fabulous friends that are mummies, happy Mother's Day, Amita. And also to all the dads out there who are also mums as well. So everybody does an amazing job every day of the year, but today is your day. So I hope you're just chilled and relaxed and having a lovely spoiled morning. We've just got a few seconds to let everybody get in still. It's just been technical issue after technical issue this morning. There was quite a lot of shouting at laptops and cameras and things to the point I've not been able to put any makeup on, so forgive this state. But you know, we have done everything else. So today, if you're watching, you're over on the Facebook page or the YouTube channel or the Facebook group. It's lovely to see you. The Facebook page actually is the best place to be. So if you are on those others, come over to the Facebook page, and that's where everybody's chatting away and things as well. And good morning, happy Mummies Day to you as well, Gina, over there in Ireland. So let's get started. We have backup of the old phone as well. So fingers crossed, we're still on the Wi-Fi. Like I say, the iPad has decided it's going to install updates. This is my luck this morning. Windows wanted to do it this morning, then the camera didn't want to work and everything. So we're going to have some nice restful baking now, hopefully. Fingers crossed it doesn't all go totally to pot. But this morning we're going to be making the perfect macaron. And I like to say perfect. There is no issue with imperfections or anything in your macaron. They will taste amazing, and they can be however you want them to be. Now these are here on the, I'm still getting used to the new setup with the where things are. So these over here, these were my very first attempt, and you can find this on the blog, and you can go and find all the trials and tribulations that I had of making these things, and they look more like a whoopie pie or cookie sandwich than they did a macaron. But it was a really good start for me, and I figured out I learned over the years of how they, how with my ovens and my equipment and my technique, how I get the perfect macaron. So that's what we're looking for today. Now this is at the moment the only macaron recipe on the blog because I've had so many failures over the years. They are my baking nemesis. Now the recipe we're doing today, I've already baked, done it as a half recipe, so I've got some shells to show you later, and I made those yesterday. But I'm going to be doing half the recipe, but the recipe and the details and also on the blog is the full batch recipe. And this will make between 24 and 36 shells, which is going to give you 12 to 18 macarons when they're all sandwiched together. We're just going to be doing a very basic vanilla one here, but you can mix it up and change it. Now with the flavors and adding things, it does mean you have to tweak the recipe slightly. So if you really want to have a go at macarons and you're unsure or anything, stick with the vanilla one to start with, just a simple vanilla macaron shell, and then switch your fillings out. Then when you're ready and you're understanding what's going on with the oven and all of this stuff that's around me that we're going to go through at the moment, then maybe start tweaking. I did the terrible thing of doing these and then thinking I can go and do amazing things. Now, if anyone's watched Adriano Zumbo on Netflix with Just Desserts with Rachel Koo, he is amazing. I'm meant to get the book out. I will just grab it without kicking over the camera. We've got a little bookshelf in the kitchen now, it's great. So this guy here, Adriano Zumbo, he is the king of macarons for me, apart from people like Lardre and everybody, the French ones. This guy is, you know, your really weird and wonderful flavours. So go and check him out. He used to have patisseries and stuff in Australia, but I think they've closed down now. But he's definitely worth a look if you want some inspiration for what you can do in the future. But for the moment, like I say, we're just going to do vanilla ones. Now, as well, these are naturally gluten-free. They have got almond flour or ground almonds in, so it's not something I eat because of the nut aspect, but I'm all right with handling it. But there's no flour in this unless you're adding anything with any gluten in it. But they are, in the raw state, naturally gluten-free. And what you'll see is actually it's a really simple recipe. It actually is really easy once you get to grips with it and you've figured it out. But the more important things than anything is our equipment. So we'll go through the ingredients first, the equipment list, and then I'll show you what I've got here. So ingredients wise, like I say, it's simple. We're using sort of 4 main ingredients, and that's icing sugar or powdered sugar, confectioner's sugar, which is in one of these bowls. And I'm using, like I say, a half measure, so I'm using 75 grams, but this is the full measure here, 50. So I'm using this is a golden caster sugar, icing sugar that I was sent to try out. So I used this yesterday and it's really nice. So that's that one. We've then got, and I opened it just now, almond flour. You can also use ground almonds, but you want to make sure that it's not one with any husks or anything, although we are going to sieve it. But you can use almond flour or ground almonds. We've got almond flour. Then we've also got egg whites. I've split this into 2, and I'll talk to you about the egg whites when we get there. But we've got 110 grams of egg whites. Now, I know that sounds really pedantic, and I've asked you to weigh out your egg whites, but it's really key because with this recipe, measurement and weights are really important. You can't eyeball it, and you can't use capacities like cups or anything. You want to be using a set of digital kitchen scales to weigh out accurately. So I've got, there's 110 grams of egg whites, although I've got half measure, but I've split those in half, and I'll tell you why when we get to it. You'll need another 150 grams of caster sugar or granulated sugar. You can use regular granulated sugar for this because we're going to heat it and make a sugar syrup. I'm using caster sugar because that's what I've got. Let's get rid of those lids. We're then going to be using some water, straight from tap, cold water, 3 tablespoons is best. If we're going to weigh that, this is about the only time you can get away with actually not weighing it, but just be met if you want to. It's about 37 grams of water. That's cold water. And then we've got the vanilla extract again, so we're going to be just using a teaspoon of that. You can also colour your macarons, and if you're doing that, you want to be using the gel food colours as well. These are concentrate, but also they're not going to add any additional liquid into our macaron batter. So that's our ingredients. And then with our equipment, as you'll see, there's quite a longer list going on here. And we've got a fine metal sieve. It can be a fine plastic sieve. Metal's just easier. But we're going to be sieving, oh, I put that in front of my face. We're going to be sifting our caster sugar and our ground almonds. You're also going to need a well, on the lid, well, let's do first. Here is a large mixing bowl, just a large mixing bowl so you can combine everything in. Glass tends to be better when it comes to this. We're doing we're going to be making like a meringue, so that's that. You're also going to want a mini chopper or a food processor, and this depends on what batch size you're doing. I'm using a mini chopper, just a standard one that you hand blended one. You can get ones that have got bigger bases. I bought one for my sister-in-law for Christmas, and I've got my own one. I think it's was really reasonably priced on Amazon as well. I won't say in case you saw it. I don't want to tell her how much I spent for a Christmas present. But if you're doing a bigger batch, or you don't have a mini chopper, you can use a food processor, so a Magimix with the knife blade attachment. You're also going to want a stand or a hand mixer. I'm using the KitchenAid. Oh, that's behind the ingredients list. I'm using the KitchenAid, or you use a hand mixer, because we're going to be whipping up our egg whites with the sugar syrup for quite a while. So you don't want to be doing it by hand, because it's really key that meringue mixture, the egg and the sugar, becomes nice and thick and glossy. So doing that's best with a hand or a stand mixer. And Gina, I'd like to hope maybe the KitchenAid maybe arrive for Mother's Day, or it's coming. But a stand mixer or a hand mixer. You're also going to want a rubber spatula, just for folding in, but a rubber one is better than wooden. Just a couple of spoons, a piping bag and a nozzle, or just a piping bag. Silicone pastry brush. This isn't on the list, but I'll talk about this when we get there. And then you're going to want a small, I think that might be IKEA speak, but a small saucepan, heavy bottomed one, and I'm just using a non-stick one, and a sugar thermometer, which I have here. Now this is a digital one. There's so many different ones out there. This is one, the display's got a bit, so I won't show you it because it's awkward to show. So, I've just had a Wi-Fi warning in case that goes low. I apologise. I'm just going to turn the Wi-Fi off on the iPad, because that's just decided it's going to join us. So that's so hopefully Ian has been putting the network points in. Should be one coming in the next week or so, but the upstairs is done. He needs to lift all the carpets to do downstairs. So fingers crossed. Just give me a shout if it does start becoming funny. Anyway, back to this, our sugar thermometer. So you can get various ones from kitchen stores, online stores, and the usual the A-word one. And this is a digital one. You can do this without a sugar thermometer. There's a lot of places on the internet where you can go and find out the different elements, but we're going to be heating, and it's very precise about the temperatures that we're going to be heating our sugar to. And this one has some presets in it, so we're going to pop it in and then it will heat up to what it is. We'll talk about temperatures when we get there. And I've got this nifty little thing now that Ian bought me for Christmas. Let's go back to full screen. So we've got, my name's in the way. I've got a little induction hob now that I had for Christmas, so I don't have to turn my back to you and use the oven. So we're going to be doing it on that. So there's quite a lot, but there's not a lot, if you see what I mean. The start then is we're going to start with blending together our ground almonds and our icing sugar. So for this, we're going to be using the mini chopper, whose lid goes to about there. Let's just move that out of the way for a minute. We don't need that. And in here, we're going to add our icing sugar and our ground almonds. Now, you don't have to do this, but it's a lot easier. But what we're looking for is trying to get out the clumps and any lumps and get it really nice and fine. This is our sort of almost our, this is the substance that binds everything with the meringue eggs. So in here then, we're going to add these two. Now you can do it in 2 lots or 2 parts. Let's just move some bits out of the way. And I'm just going to spoon this in, obviously, because it's, I've got, but you just put yours straight in. That goes. Now you might think, oh, it seems such a faff doing this, like having to mix and blend these all together. But it's really key. You don't want any lumps or any bumps in anything, because that's what will make your meringue macaron shells crack as well. So I've added the icing sugar. I'm going in now with the ground almonds. In. So they're both in our mini chopper, and what we're going to do is pulse it. So if you're doing this in the food processor or a mini chopper, you don't want to just whack it on and whiz it up, because what will happen is that almond flour will start releasing the oils, and then the macarons won't come together, and you'll get a really, the meringue batter will just sort of not work, and it'll become too runny, and they'll just end up split all over. So I'm just gonna give these two a, let's do it without the lid together to start with, and then just blitz it. So it's a couple of blitz just to get them mixed together, but without releasing any of the almond oils. So that's it. That's it. I'm just going to plug the KitchenAid in, because we're going to need that. That's as much as you need to do. So if you are doing the small batch and you have a mini chopper, it's a lot less washing up than getting out the food processor. So then we have a mix of ground almonds and icing sugar. And then again, this one is a key step. We're going to sieve this through. And this just gets rid of any final lumps. So I'm gonna scoop this out into here and do it a bit at a time. So, and this will get rid of any sort of other husks or any sort of other bits or lumps that are usually left over from the ground almond or the almond flour. If you're using almond flour, with double check that it tends to be made with blanched almonds. We don't want anything with skin on almonds. So if you do have that, most flours, most ground almonds are blanched anyway and skin off. So we're just going to keep doing this. Add a little bit more. Yeah. Now this is a really easy recipe to half batch. As you can see, this is what I'm doing. So if you prefer to not make a lot, and also things like this bit, the sieving bit, if you've got a big batch, it takes quite a while. So it's easy split down. And we'll talk about our eggs next. I meant to say, when we're going through the ingredients list, you'll need some baking sheets with some parchment, baking parchment, not grease-proof, baking parchment, or the silicone baking mat. So I'm using the silicone baking mats, the Silpat, but you want to be using, let's just get either that or baking parchment, not grease-proof. I'm going to eyeball mine when I come to piping, but I will tell you a little trick when we get there. Now, I haven't preheated the oven because what happens is once we've made these and piped them, we're going to let them stand for half an hour before we bake them. So, and they bake low and quite slow, actually, depending on who you listen to or recipes you read. So I baked on 2 different temperatures yesterday to test out this oven, and 2 different times, so I can show you the difference when we get there. Now we're getting to the stage on this where it needs a little coaxing through, so we're almost there. It is, like I say, it is necessary. Now, if you don't have any chopping, you don't want to sieve, you don't have a food processor to blitz it, you can do this by sieving everything together 3 times. Same technique through a fine metal sieve, combine the sugar and the almond flour together in a bowl and then sieve it 3 times to get everything through. And what you'll find as well when you're sifting is the darker bits of the almond flour, those extra husks bits that aren't fine enough, don't come through. So we'll keep going for a moment. I just drop some in there, so I'm just going to pop that back in. Sift it through. Just do the last bit because we're going to get rid of quite a bit of this. Actually, looking at it, it's quite you'll be able to tell it looks a bit more wholemeally than the finer ground almonds and icing sugar mix. Just give it there's still some coming through, so let's just, you'll know, you'll be able to judge when it's not sifting and there's nothing else coming through. So, I did want to do this with the camera, with the second camera setup today, but as we've seen, the iPad and the iPhone have had a hissy fit. But we'll give it a try actually next week. So in here now, then I have a almond and icing sugar sifted mix, and then in here I've got actually quite a darker, more coarser grain, and that's the almond. It's more like almond meal, and this. Let's just give it one last. We're not forcing it through the sieve because we don't want to push anything through. You can give it a little stir, and it does help, but at that point, that's pretty much where you are. Don't be afraid to ditch that bit, but make sure you've got as much out as possible. So I'm just going to put that in the food waste, which is in the other sink, and get rid of that. So our almond and icing sugar mix. So next thing up, we're going to look at our eggs. Now these are egg whites. They are, you want to be using eggs that are a little bit older. Fresh, straight fresh eggs. The egg white hasn't had a chance to break down yet. And it's that breaking down that's going to give you a really nice, thick, lovely meringue. So we want them, people will talk about liquefying them or aging your egg whites. And sort of, you can do this with eggs that you haven't aged or liquefied, but you want to be using older eggs rather than eggs that are sort of straight fresh. So these eggs were about a week old, and I left them sort of to come up to room temperature yesterday morning, and then split out my yolks and my egg whites. 110 actually, if we just look at the ingredients, 110 egg whites is about 4 eggs, 4 medium-sized eggs. You might have a little bit more in there. I think I had about a teaspoon left, so you can discard that. You can keep the yolks. My yolks are in the fridge at the moment. I'm going to be making fresh custard with them later, and if that works and we don't eat it straight away, I'll be doing another baking basics for the blog with fresh custard. So let's go back to our main screen. Now I split my egg whites into 2 pots of equal quantities. So what we're going to do first is we're actually going to take one of these egg whites and mix it into our almond and icing sugar batter, and then the other one is the one that we're going to whisk up for here. So aging them, really all it does is it starts to break down that white. It starts to break down the albumin in the egg white to just make it a lot more liquidy. We're not sort of having to battle with the proteins when we're whisking it up. And you can literally all it is separating your eggs and popping them in the fridge. If you can do that, sort of give it a good week if you can, and make sure obviously that they're well sealed and there's no contamination going on there. That will give you really great results. You can buy egg whites in a carton. Now I have seen people using them for macarons, and I haven't used them. I did think about it, but I think, I say you don't want to use fresh eggs, but I think fresh egg whites that are aged are better than the cartons, but I haven't tried them, so I can't say. So if you do want to use the carton egg whites, it would be roughly, you'd be looking at actually the same technique, but I just can't tell you how that will work out at the moment. I will give them a try in the future. But for the moment, we're using the egg whites that I've aged and liquefied over the last 24 hours. So they're a lot more, it's a lot more watery, a lot more runny. So for the first one then, I've taken half of my egg whites, apologies, and I've got my icing sugar and almond ground almond flour mixture. I'm just going to make a well in the center and pour those egg whites in. Stay. And I'm just going to fold this together, and it's going to form a paste, sort of a thick paste. Some people do this, some people don't. Raymond Blanc, I was looking at his recipe. He doesn't fold his in like this. The people say that this helps, just sort of stabilizes it before you add those egg yolks in once they're whisked up. So bring it all together into sort of like a nut paste there. It's very sticky. Let's just scrape that. So we can just pop this now to one side. Just pop it there. We're going to need another spatula. So then our next step is heating our sugar and whisking our eggs. Now this is sort of a multitasking exercise, I'm afraid. We are going to be heating our sugar syrup, and we're going to then, when this gets to a certain temperature, we're going to start whisking our eggs up. So here, prep, making sure you've got everything ready is key. Now, if you're over by a hob, if you can do, or if you've got space, we're going to be using hot sugar. So this isn't one for using, for making with the kids, I'm afraid. It is going to get very hot, and you need to be very careful. So what I try and do here, I've got set up right next to each other. If I was over here at the hob, I'd have the KitchenAid sort of just to the right as well there. So I've got less transferring of hot sugar throughout the kitchen. It can be pretty nasty, and that's not what we want, I'm afraid. I'm afraid that's not what we want. Let's get some water and a tablespoon. So, first up, let's get our eggs and our whisk ready. Now, you can use a hand whisk, handheld mixer, or you can use a stand mixer. We're using one with the balloon whisk attachment there to get as much air into our eggs as possible. So with this, all you want to do then is add the last half of your eggs. So in that goes. Make sure it's all in there. It doesn't look a lot, but don't worry. It makes a lot. And it will whisk up. So we've got our eggs in there, and we are switched on it all. We're ready to go. So then, for our sugar, we're going to be making. There's different ways of doing this, and there's ways of doing this without heating sugar. I tried it once. It failed abysmally. So this is the tried and tested method that I use, which is it's like making Italian meringue. So we're going to be heating and making a sugar syrup and then adding it into our whisked egg whites. So into our saucepan, we're going to add our caster sugar or our granulated sugar. So that's in there. And then 3 tablespoons of just cold water. 1, 2, 3. And if you poured yourself a bowl of water like I have, keep that to one side because you might need it. You might also need a silicone pastry brush. This and the water are, when the sugar is heating, after the initial stir that we're going to do, we're not going to stir it, because if we do that, it's going to crystallize. So, but what will happen is it's bubbling up and it's heating away and it's getting all lovely and sugary syrup, is you're going to start seeing little splatters up the side of your pan. The easiest way to do that, because we don't want to encourage it up, is with a silicone pastry brush and a little bit of water, and then we can just wipe around the edge where that sugar is. It helps sort of dissolve it again, and it puts it back, and it gets it where we're not encouraging it to grow up the side of the pan. So these two, keep them on side. And then our sugar thermometer. Now, if you're using analog one, a normal one, then that's fine. You can see where it's going. If you're using a digital one, depending on what it is, you want to set it to Celsius. But I will put the Fahrenheit temperatures into the full recipe. And we're going to be heating this to what they call the softball stage, which is about 112 to 116 degrees C. And we're going to be taking it to about 114, 115. And at that point, when it gets to that, we're going to start whisking up our egg whites until they start getting thick and frothy and foamy. By the time they get to that, which is about another minute or so further, your sugar will have heated to 118 degrees. And at that point, we want to take the sugar off the heat and we're going to start to add it into our egg whites whilst this is still running. So this is why I say it's good to be set up and be close. You're not having to run around the kitchen with hot sugar in your hand. So when this gets to 115, we start whisking our egg whites, and then we keep an eye on this till it's 118, and then we'll take a look at this. And by that point, they've not started whipping into meringue, but they're that frothy, foamy mixture. And we're going to pour that into there. Then what will happen is this will keep going until they're for another 3 to 4 minutes until they're nice and thick and white and glossy, and then we'll start adding in our colours and our vanilla extract and keep whisking up again until it starts to come to room temperature. Now, if you're doing this in something like a stand mixer, it's nice and easy. You can just feel the temperature on the side of the bowl. But we will talk about this when we get there. I'm not telling you all now and then we'll ignore it when we get there. We'll talk about it now. But just to let you know, this is what we're going to be doing. So, back to the matter in hand. We have our sugar and our 3 tablespoons of water in there. And shouldn't have been 3 tablespoons of water because I've done half measure. It should have been 1.5. So we'll just have to boil this down a little bit more. Wonderful, Louise, well done. So all I've just done here is stir in our water and our sugar until they're sort of combined. We're not going any further than that. And like I say, that's all we're going to do on stirring now. So, and I'm going to do this on a sort of, if you've got an induction, it's about a 2. Doesn't want to come up any higher. We don't want to be heating our sugar too quickly. So I'm going to pop my thermometer in here as well so I can see it. And I must admit, this is so much easier on something like the induction, which is nice and flat, than trying to get it on the cast iron bits of the gas hob. So I'm just gonna pop this to manual and we'll take it there. So there's really not much else you can do until this gets up to temperature. It is a case of watch, wait, keep an eye on it and see what happens. So, and depending on what you're using, whether it's gas or induction or electric hob, then it will, how quickly it comes up to temperature could be a variety of different ways. So you'll start to see our sugar syrup when you're doing it. It'll start to become clear as the sugar dissolves and sort of the sugar becomes one, rather than at the moment when I look, I can still see the sugar. It's quite grainy. Because I've used a golden caster sugar, this has got a little yellow tinge to it, and that's fine. It's fine. It's not a problem. So we're just going to let that just gently do its thing. Now, whilst I keep an eye on that, can talk about these guys. These are ones that I made yesterday. Now, I had varying degrees of success, depending on which ones I did. Now, I've got some here. I'm just going to pop them into the lid. I put some sprinkles on. And then I want to show you those. And then also some ones without sprinkles on. Now, let's get what you might not be able to see on the camera, but this one, the one with the sprinkles and the sprinkle that's made a hole in itself, this is actually paler in colour, and this is quite nice and bright, and I'm attributing this to the temperature I cooked at. Now, the ones with the sprinkles on, these were cooked at 170 for 8 minutes, whereas these were slightly slower, cooler, 140. Why is my sugar thermometer not showing me some temperature? Please don't tell me the battery's gone. No, I didn't press go. That's fine. There we are. And let's just go back to these. This is the paler one then that was at 140 for 8 minutes. And then this is the brighter one, which was 170 for 8 minutes, 140 for 12 minutes. And I did this because I tested for 2 different temperatures, because again, it's a new oven and I've not made macarons in it before. And that's how, that's sort of where I'm going to go. I'm going to go with my max in here at 140 for 12 minutes. And you can see, nice and bright back. Now, I made various sizes. We've got some little diddy ones as well. And the mix that we're going to be mixing up when I pipe them, I'm going to go for more of the size than the larger ones there. Now, I did say, don't worry if they crack, they are just as tasty, I believe. Don't worry, sometimes they will. You get a little eruption there on that one. And that's fine. They're just as tasty. So once you've baked your meringues, you want to leave them to cool fully on the baking sheet for about 5 to 10 minutes, if not a little longer, before you start pulling them off. Because what we're looking for, I'm going to see if I can find bottom, is a nice, smooth, flat bottom like this. If you take them off too early, you'll pull some of the base of that off, like I've got on that one. It's perfectly fine. You know, it's going to be sandwiched with everything in there anyway. So this is what we're going to want. And some people prefer nice big ones. I actually prefer the more dainty, smaller ones. So this is where we're going to be going. So this is going to be sandwiched together like that. Now, this is starting to boil. I can see the sugar starting to go there. So we keep a bit of an eye on it. That's come up to 60 degrees already. Don't forget, we're taking it to about 115 to start with. You want to keep, if you're not making your meringues, you're making them and then not filling them straight away, keep them in an airtight container. They will start to go soft after a day or so. So you want to make them, fill them, and then sort of eat them after that. So this is now really started to bubble, and I can see that around the back here, I've got my sugar start to splatter. So again, just a dip and a right round. Encourage that sugar back in. And I'm not going near the sugar, I'm just doing it near the top so that water runs down the side of the pan. Let's just turn that around. So remember, we are working with hot sugar, so please, please, please be careful. There we go. I'm just going to take that up a notch. And love this little thing. Ian bought it me for Christmas for the video, so I didn't have to turn my back to you. It's just a Tefal induction unit. You can get them. IKEA do one as well. I think it's really, really good value for £30. I think £35. I think the one in IKEA is. This was 50, but it's a little Tefal one. So if you're going away or camping, or like my mum and my stepdad, you know, they're off in the motorhome or whatever, it's perfect. You don't have to worry about gas or anything like that. So yes, it's great. So this is really starting to bubble now. I can see it's coming. It's now a clear liquid. I can see through it. It doesn't look like there's any sugar hanging around there anymore. Just double checking. And that is really coming up. So about 91 degrees. So it's not that far away from being at our soft ball stage, which is when we're going to turn this on. So it is a quite easy recipe. It's in two parts. It's the sifting and mixing of paste, the almond flour and the icing sugar and the egg whites. It's making the sugar syrup and then adding that into here, into our whipped egg whites. So I can see this is starting to come up. We're at 101 degrees C. And these digital sugar, meat thermometers, all sorts, depending on what you're using it for. This is the Salter Precision one. It's I've only ever used it for sugar syrups, but you can use it for all various things. It's got all the settings on it, so it should give an audible beep when it gets to the temperature that we're looking for. So that's coming through there quite nicely. Just going to go back in again, minding the pan handle with some water. And that's the other thing. If you are doing this on a hob or you haven't got that much space, do make sure that your pan handle is over and out the way. And that comes with anything when we're cooking. I'm sure you're all aware of that. I was watching something, a YouTuber the other day, and his pan handle was out here and he was running around. I was like, oh my God, it's an accident waiting to happen. But especially when it comes to sugar. So it's patience. This recipe is easy. It's just patience. Take your time, let the ingredients do their work, weigh the ingredients out, and it will all come together. It will all be fine. So we're going to, it's not quite there yet. It's still going. We can't be far off. Using a small amount of sugar syrup, we're doing this in a small saucepan. It's giving us a little bit of depth in our syrup in order for it all to do its thing and not just burn on the bottom. If you're doing too big a pan, it's just gonna sort of just dissolve and evaporate away. So we're nearly there. This is there we go. So that's our first step. So I'm going to take that up now to 118, just watching on the thermometer. So now I'm going to, on medium, it's going to be a little noisy, I'm afraid. We're going to start whisking our egg whites until they're frothy. And that's on a medium-high speed. And I'm just going to take down the temperature of the sugar syrup. So we're looking at 118 on here. And like I say, all this is doing is breaking down egg whites, starting off the meringue process, the whisking process. So be white and fluffy and frothy. It doesn't need to be any more than that. So here we go. This has reached the stage I want it at. Now, this is hot on the end of there, as you can see, maybe with a little drip of sugar. I'm just going to put that into cold water so it'll be easier for me to clean off afterwards. And we don't have any molten sugar anywhere. So, with this still going then, we're going to take our sugar syrup, and into here we're going to gently and slowly pour in the sugar. You want to do it slowly and gently so as not to cook the eggs. Now I've left it for a moment before we do that. Just turn that off. If I add this in straight away, it's going to cook them. So get that out of the way. So this now is whisking on a high. You'll notice when I poured it in, I started to whisk it up. Now this, as you pour in, you want to try and get the sugar syrup stream into that egg white, not too close, because what you'll see happen is that as it's whisking, it will spit the sugar syrup up onto the sides as we go through. So let's just stop. I'm just going to stop it here now and just scrape it down a moment. You can see that's there, whisking up. Now, I want just to show you, you might be able to see it, the sugar syrup is all around the edge as well. That's fine, don't worry. You can scrape down. But that's not a problem. So this is our thick and white meringue. I'm going to pop it back on a little bit longer as well. I'm just going to get rid of the hot because it's still hot. And we're looking for really thick, white, glossy egg whites, and that's going nicely. So in the meantime, just while this is whisking, before we add any colour or vanilla, we're going to just set up our mats. There we go. Now, so if you're doing this on baking parchment, not greaseproof paper, it has to be baking parchment. And you're doing this for the first time, or you want to make sure you've got nice equal sized macarons, flip the piece of baking parchment over, and with a pastry cutter or something of the size that you want to, put it on the paper and draw with just draw with a pencil or something. I'm going to stop that now because that's nice, and I'll show you in a minute. So yeah, so if you're doing this with baking parchment, flip it over and with a pastry cutter or the size or the shape that you're looking for, draw that onto the back of the baking parchment. Make sure when you're doing that you're spacing them a good couple of inches apart, and then you can flip that back over the other way. So if this is baking parchment, I've drawn my shapes on here and then flip it over. And then when you're on this side, you can see your outlines underneath of which you want to pipe to, but you're not sort of obviously piping directly onto that pencil or ink that you've got there. You can get macaron silpats like this that have got them already printed on. You can get silicone macaron things and all sorts of different things. Macaron trays, but actually what we want to do is we want to encourage the air to escape, which is we'll talk about the feet. So you want to make sure it's not you're not hindering that air escaping, because that's also what can cause your cracks. So with your baking parchment, that's the best way, and try if you can to do it on a nice flat baking tray as well. So just going to pop those to one side and just take a look at this before we do the last whisker. As you can see, it's nice and thick and glossy and white. It's not dripping, it's just hanging there. It's lovely, and that's what we've got. So for this then, I'm going to colour them again. I was thinking of doing pinks and blues, and you can colour after you've added this into the almond paste, but I'm going to colour it now. I'm going to do pinks again, I think. Because I'm going to do a vanilla and a strawberry filling, and this is the food gel colour. So give it a good squeeze. Now these will pale. This one's a stiff one. They will pale as they bake. So if you, depending on what colour you're looking for, if you're looking for a nice vivid colour, give it a fair amount in there. Come on. Don't use liquid colours. We don't want to be adding any more liquid to this. And then we're going to add our vanilla extract. If you're just doing these simple with different flavours, here you could add a peppermint extract or an orange blossom or rose water. I'm just going for vanilla, so pop that in there. And back on. And give it a good whisk. Just to finish off, so it's just incorporating the vanilla extract and the colour. In the meantime, just whilst that finishes off, we're going to get a piping bag ready. Now, I'm doing mine with a thin, round nozzle. You can just put it straight into a piping bag and snip the end off. You don't need a nozzle. Or you could pop it into a preheat bag and cut the corner off. So, I think that might be ready. I'm just going to turn that off. And we're just going to get this ready because we're then going to mix this in with the almonds and it'll be ready to go. So I'm just going to measure against my piping tip. I say you can just fill this straight and then just snip the end off. And for filling, I try and pop it in something like a glass because it's a lot easier to do one-handed. So that's my piping bag ready, and that's my baking sheets ready. So we're going to grab back now then our almond and icing sugar and egg white mixture. And so we've got that there. It's paste, it's quite stiff. And we're going to take a look at our meringue mix. So let's scrape everything. As you can see, it's really nice and bright. It will pale off when it bakes, so don't worry if you're not looking for, if you're there we go. If you want something delicate, then go for a less colour in there. And also, if you just want something natural, you don't have to add the colour in at all. This is very sticky because of the sugar. There we go. Get everything off there. So I'm just going to fold in the last bits around the edge of that. Make sure we've got no white bits of meringue, just where it's not caught with the balloon whisk. So there's two schools of thought again for this, like a lot of things with macarons. There's lots of different ways of doing it. Some people just put this straight into here and then fold it through. Others, and my school of thought as well, is that we're going to sort of pre-prepare this. So we're going to just take a scoop of our meringue, oh, it looks amazing, and pop it, get a spoon, onto our, and into here. So we're going to fold this through first. And there's a word for it, macaronage, I think. I won't pronounce it properly. But it's helping it sort of combine first, so it sort of prepares it. So then what you want to do is just fold through, because it's quite a stiff paste, we're just loosening it up. So fold through the meringue mixture into the almond and icing sugar and egg white paste. Just keep folding until it starts to loosen up. But don't go too far, just so it's started to become loose, and you'll end up with a mixture a bit like this. Then you can add, oops, the rest. So I say this is it's a simple ingredients recipe, but the equipment wise and the washing up on this one, I'm afraid, is a little bit more than the others. So get that all in there. To one side. I really don't like the fact you guys can see I'm watching up. So now all we're going to do is fold through very gently the last of the meringue mixture. Don't go mad at it because we don't want it to be too loose. If it's too loose, when we pipe it and we let them rest, they'll just spread. So what I tend to do is go round the outside of the bowl and fold in on itself. Round and fold in. Just until it's mixed together. And what we're looking for, and you will have heard it when you've been making macarons, or not macarons, meringues, or you've whipped cream before, we're looking for the thick ribbon stage. And that's when we hold our batter up and it will drop off, and it takes about 10 seconds to fold in, to merge back into the main mix. So here we go. That'll do. Like I say, if you overfold it or overmix it, it's just going to become runny and it's not going to be very pleasant, and you're going to end up with pancake macarons rather than macarons. So now we're at this stage. I'm going to, and I might need another spoon again, but we're going to pour this into our piping bag, and this is why I pop it into the glass. Be careful because you are using glass, or you can use a plastic beaker or something like that, but something that will hold your piping bag. Oh, we've got a bit of leakage on the side. Come on. There we go. Now, I know some people with nut allergies can't handle things like this, but I'm okay with handling almonds. So I'm going to pop that to the side of the rest of the washing up. I don't like that at all. And then here we go. So with our baking sheets then, we're going to get our macaron mixture down. And I'm going to pipe into, I want to go through a smaller look. So the larger ones are about a 3 that I showed you, and I'll show you again, about a 3 centimetre dollop. I want to do smaller, so I'm probably going to just go for 2. So I'm just going to squeeze out. You want to try and get them roughly the same size. So that's where if you're using a mat or you're drawing, like I said, the stencil on the back, it's really handy to see that size. And they will spread out a little bit before they are baked. I want to go, like I just said, I want to go with smaller ones. So I'm going about 2 centimetres. And then just piping through. And over onto this one. fill these with is a little bit of, I'm going to use this same nozzle, as it's a thin nozzle, to pipe a ring of vanilla buttercream round the outside circumference of the macaron shells, and then I'm going to fill them with a little bit of strawberry jam. So I'm nearly there, and then I can, but like I say, these aren't going to bake straight away. These are actually going to sit for 30 minutes or so before I pop them in the oven. I've got an odd number, so I just need to. Oops. And then just some, I'm just going to do some little dots. But might as well, just before they go in, use up the rest of the batter mix. There we go. Right. So, last thing before we leave them to one side is just tap them, and don't be afraid, 3 times on the work surface. And what that's doing is any air bubbles that are trapped in them, helping to encourage them to the surface. So these are just going to sit now on the side for about 30 minutes. Before I'm ready to put them in, I'm going to preheat the oven to 140 degrees. And then they're going to go into the oven for 12 minutes. Now, I bake mine a tray at a time in the middle of the oven. Lots of people say similar. It means that it gives them a good fighting chance. Depends how many you're doing, if you've got any patience. But for the first time, just take it easy, figure it out, find out how the macarons are doing, and then pop them in the oven just on their own. It's only 12 minutes. You take one out and the next one's gone. What happens, and what should happen, is because we've let them sit, they are forming almost like the top layer that is almost thickening up slightly. So when they bake, the air will push up that top, but will escape out the bottom a bit. And that's what we call the foot. Now this is where I really wanted the phone, but we had the technical issues this morning. And you'll see, oh, this one is decided to come away. That's fine. But you'll see that you get that little bubbly edge to it, the foot. And that's when you see people talking about macarons and their feet, or I've got a good foot, that's what we're looking for on those, is that edge, and that our top stays nice and smooth. So by just allowing them to sit for a while, that's encouraging that to happen. Like the ones that I've got with some sprinkles on, if you want to add sprinkles or do anything like this, now is the time to do it whilst the macarons are sitting. So straight after you've piped them, sprinkle on anything on the top, and then you could use freeze-dried fruit, sprinkles, but obviously don't add any additional liquid to it. So these now are going to sit and wait until they're ready. And that is been a quite long one this morning, but that's really, and there's a lot of washing up, but that's really how I will bake the perfect macaron. And I will show you these guys once they're finished as well. So as usual, just going to quickly recap. We've talked this morning for quite a while. I'm hoping it's been really useful, so please do let me know. We've been talking about the perfect macaron, which is my baking nemesis. Over 10, 12 years I've been trying to bake these little monkeys, but I've sort of managed, and I think I've nailed it now, and that's what we've walked through today. This recipe that I've shown you is a half recipe, but the full ingredients list is here in the video. And what you're going to end up is with a nice, really chewy, crispy meringue shell on those, which is naturally gluten-free. So I'm not adding anything here with any gluten in or any wheat, so it's not going to change that at all. And like I say, once you've nailed this as the base recipe, you can play around and try and change the different fillings. Start with the fillings first before you start changing the flavors of the shell. But they are actually, despite it being a long video, they are really quick and easy to make once you've got that. It's just a case of being prepared and having a little patience. Like I say, multitasking with the hot sugar and the whisking eggs. Just can't wait to see them when they are all finished. Me neither, hopefully. I'm hoping these ones are going to come out all right. The problem with macarons is that they're my nemesis. You know, they can look great here and they go in the oven and that's it. They all just go to pieces. But like I say, it doesn't matter if they're split or a bit wonky. They're really they're just as tasty as well. Ingredients wise, like I say, really easy. Icing sugar, ground almond or almond flour, egg whites. Use not fresh and liquefied. When I write the blog post up for this, it's going to be quite a lengthy one, so I will put all this information in as well. It'll be sort of like on Macaron 101, so to speak. You also want granulated or caster sugar. I use caster sugar, a little bit of water and vanilla extract, and if you're colouring, using food gels. Equipment wise, a good fine sieve. I've used a metal one. You can use a plastic one if you've got one. A mini chopper or food processor is handy. Stand mixer or handheld mixer is ideal for that multitasking. You don't want to be balloon whisking that egg white when you get to there, although there's people out there that I'm sure do. A large mixing bowl, rubber spatula, your small saucepan, and a sugar thermometer. I will put all of that into the post. I've started writing it. There's quite a lot to go on, but that will be coming soon. But you can also find the initial recipe and my first trials and tribulations of do I, don't I post it, of what I think I called my maca pies because they were just really weird, all down on the blog. It's that side actually. So if you search macarons on the blog, you'll find that post. It's also listed in the video information. However, let's go. There it is. That's it for today. I'm going to let all you lovely mummies go and enjoy the rest of your Mother's Day. I will be here again next week. We are getting closer, scarily, to Easter. So we're really going to be doing some Easter bits and pieces. So next week is a mini egg chocolate tart with a chocolate pastry case. So we'll be all good for that as well. And yeah, I'm going to love you guys and leave you. Thank you very much. Thank you, Gina. Have a great day too. Enjoy the rest of your Sunday. And I hope you have a lovely Mother's Day, all you lovely mums and dads as well that are mums out there. Take care and I'll see you again next week. Bye for now.